Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 237.
Today's show, we're going to hear part two of Rachel Shelly Voss, Wisconsin State Chairman for the Mule Deer Foundation. And she's going to further unpack the role of conservation plays in hunting, plus the role conservation plays in just having a balanced herd out there. So listen up. She's got some great insights, and it's going to be informative. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, and this is part two with Rachel Voss of the Mule Deer Foundation and pro staffer for ProUS. Rachel, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Bruce.
Hey, where we left off yesterday, we were talking about cats and we're talking about juveniles and the issues that you're having. And let's face it, here in Colorado Springs, a place called Rockrimmon, that's where mule deer come down out of the hills, out of the mountains, and spend the winter. Traditional wintering habitat, and people call all the time, my friends at the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, there's a cougar on my deck all the time. So let's pick up right there. Let's stay right on the Mule Deer Foundation and the growth and what your goals are and anything else you want to talk about.
Sure. You know, like I said, I'd love to jump back in with Mule Deer Foundation and the role that I play in the importance of the foundation, just to conservation and to the entire nation, really. You know, I'm so passionate about it. And Washington State last year, for people that don't know, had the worst fire season to date. We lost over 1.1 million acres of super vital mule deer and black-tailed deer habitat. It was absolutely devastating for the state. And so, you know, I'm so passionate about the amount of money that these chapters in Washington State, these 13 chapters, have worked so hard to, you know, I should rewind. We, like a lot of conservation groups, we have annual fundraising banquets. It's a great time. It's crime rib, it's drinks, it's an auction. People get to win guns. It's a great thing, but that is how our money is raised. And that is how the money that we spend back on the ground, that's where it comes from, Bruce. It comes from the community and the people who support mule deer and blacktail conservation in Washington State. You know, it's I could just go on forever about it, but you know, there's so many important things specifically for this year here in Washington State alone. A lot of the money that has been raised, where you will see a lot of it going back to a lot of fire rehab, that might be for projects where we've lost some very important, that might be for some areas where we've lost very important mule deer wintering and summer ranges. It could involve with Department of Fish and Wildlife, some multi-phase replanting projects of some of their very common dietary forage that they lost, that they will be out of the area or they will just die off without anything from antelope bitterbrush to wax currant to the rose currants and just the basic basin big sage, all very important parts of the mule deer's diet. So very important to me, very, very important. The money that we raise is it goes back on the ground, and that's the great thing about the Mule Deer Foundation. These chapters and these committees in these cities work so hard to raise this money that they want to see their chapter rewards that they have earned go back and stay local for their local deer. And it's something we take a lot of pride in with Mule Deer Foundation, and can firmly say that the money money these people raise and work so hard for, they get to keep local and use it how they choose for mule deer and blacktail habitat.
Let's just stop there because everybody has a different equation formula, if you will, in the conservation movement and conservation across North America for all sorts of ducks and fish and critters. And so what I just heard you saying that the money that we raise at the, give me a name of a town.
Yakima, Washington.
Okay, so you and I raised, we're the community chairman, we raised, or chairpersons, and we raised $50,000 after expenses. That's our net, net to gross it was 100, so it's 50% net to gross. I don't know if that's good or bad. But anyway, so there's $50,000. How does the earmark go with the Mule Deer Foundation?
So what happens is each chapter strives to hit a 60% goal, and that is so that they can get the maximum amount of chapter rewards. And the chapter rewards is the money that comes back to that chapter, say Yakima, Washington, to go back on the ground for projects using Yakima, Washington, and Region 3. Right now, they are doing a wonderful, wonderful project with enforcement. GPSs, handhelds, those type of things. They go out of like every month. It's almost like a cell phone, how often it needs to be upgraded, right? We are currently buying from Garmin, and Garmin is wonderful and giving us an amazing deal as we're a nonprofit, buying 14 new handheld rhinos for the enforcement officers, for new cameras that can be checked from the computers, that can be checked from the phones. So these bad guys and these poachers aren't knowing where these cameras are set. Those are the types of things that money is being spent on as well. So it doesn't just go to fire rehab. It goes to the good of rehabilitation for the deer in the area. And in that specific region, there's a huge poaching problem with our deer. So what better way for those dollars to be spent? The committee decided was to let's get on board with Department of Fish and Wildlife, find out what they need. How can we help fix this problem? And that was what they said. Our officers need these new handheld GPSs where they can mark, they can connect, they're amazing. I don't know if you've ever looked at them before, but they have so many different, little whistles and bells to them. Just important tools for enforcement and for fish and wildlife. And sadly, those are not things that they can get funding for easily. So those are also places where we step in. So the chapter rewards that Yakima, Washington has earned, they have decided to use a portion of that for an anti-poaching and enforcement project, which is amazing. And then, it goes beyond that. It's kind of like I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Washington was so devastated with fires. So it's not just maybe Yakima, Washington that's wanting to put some chapter rewards. Say we've got Okanagan and say we've got Ellensburg or different towns that have chapters that say, I'll kick in we'll kick in $500 to that. So also with the chapter rewards, it's very common within the state, specifically if it's a big project or an area that's been devastated, like some of these with fires, for other chapters to help other chapters. So say this project for Region 3 with Yakima is going to equivalent to, rewind. Say this project for Region 3 for enforcement is going to come to $8,000 to $9,000. There's other chapters that have money as well that think that's a really valuable tool. That's a very important tool for fish and game. And that's a real problem that we also see not only in that region, but in other regions. We would like to help. And so it's kind of like I said, sharing is caring. And that's what it's all about at Mule Deer Foundation. I mean, everybody is just on the same page and we take so much pride, Bruce, in the fact that we can say that we work so hard. Our volunteers are just absolutely amazing and all have the same goal and the same mission in mind. So the mission of the Mule Deer Foundation is just that, to ensure the conservation of mule deer, black-tailed deer, and their habitat. And on a nationwide level, they're just nailing it. We're growing by leaps and bounds, and it's just phenomenal. The volunteers are amazing. The staff in Salt Lake City is amazing. Just doing big things for conservation, and we're just getting bigger. So very, very proud to be with them.
Well, and kudos to you in your Colorado, I know Utah and Arizona, and the punch you got down in Utah. And for a long time, listeners, it was harder to get a 200-inch mule deer than it was a 200-inch whitetail, and it's even harder today to do that if that's your quest. And my quest is after mature animals. That's when I go sheep hunting here in less than a month or a little bit over a month. I'm looking for an 8.5-year-old ram. Horn size, character, everything else will filter in, but my goal is to be able to glass them and age them before I shoot them. And that's my burn after 50 years of hunting whitetails. I choose to pass up bucks. And I love how you said it. The sight of a mule deer standing in an open field, cresting a ridge line, or swiftly starting away to the safety zone never gets old. And if you've experienced that, like some of my best pictures of mule deer are late in the evening, the sun's going down, he comes off the bottoms, and he goes up a finger of pine, spruce, whatever, hits the ridge, and the sun is at his back. I've got this picture in my mind. Yeah. And just a beautiful, beautiful, deep forked mule deer, matured mule deer, and he's just looking at me, and I'm not going to shoot him because one, he's on a ridge line, two, it's getting near dark 30, and I shut my eyes and I see just the sunset and the silhouette, and that's the West to me. Elk are part of that, but that picture to me is the West, and I'll carry that until I die. But I think about that, and if you haven't experienced hunting mule deer in the open plains, in the places where the Badlands, some of the baddest land I've ever been in, right. I've seen the biggest buck. Your thoughts on that?
You pretty much hit it. They're absolutely majestic, and going back to you saying, it's hard to find, a 200-inch, and that is, again, where Mule Deer Foundation comes in and is dedicated and committed to some of those goals. For example, we're big into restoring, improving, and protecting the mule deer habitat that results in self-sustaining, healthy, free-ranging, and huntable deer populations, promoting public education and scientific research related to the mule deer and wildlife management, supporting regulated hunting as a viable component of mule deer and black-tailed deer conservation. There's so many things that we're doing on a national level with our mission, with our goals, and that we stand behind at Mule Deer Foundation to help have that for our youth, our future of conservation, so they can see those big 200 majestic looking beautiful creatures on that ridge line, so that those big bucks are back and around, and they're here for us for the future. So you hit right on it, and those are some of the most very important goals behind Mule Deer Foundation and why we do what we do.
Let's talk about why it's important for the people in the whitetail states. QDMA says there's approximately 37 whitetail states, plus the provinces of Canada. Why is it important for the people in the Whitetail Nation to give a rip about the Mule Deer Foundation?
Well, as I said, they're the mule deer. If anybody has any inkling or any love for conservation, they will care. They will want to know about it. As I told you, it is the one big game species on the quickest decline. Who wouldn't that strike a place with in someone's soul? for anybody that has a love for hunting and deer and elk or any wildlife in general, I think it's very important. I know there had been some talk from Mule Deer Foundation for some of these states that are not mule deer populated states. We've had people actually inquire, hey, can we hold a banquet here? Can we almost like an adopt a chapter or an adopt a state banquet? People really legitimately do care, Bruce, in some of these whitetail dominant states. So you'd be surprised. There are those people who care and want to know about Mule Deer Foundation, want to know about our mission. And hey, how can I help even though I'm in a state on the other side of the U.S. and all I see is whitetails? It's amazing. People that have a love for conservation and wildlife in general, I don't think they care, Bruce, what the animal is. If they know it's on the decline, if they know they can help and they're that passionate, they're going to care and they're going to jump on board.
So where do they find out information about the Mule Deer Foundation?
The best place to go is to our website, and that's www.muledeer.org. You can go by each state. You can check out any state that you want. You can read about our mission. You can read about where our dollars go. You can read about our National Hunting and Conservation Expo that we have every year in Salt Lake City. Just about anything is on our website. It's amazingly designed, so it's very easy to navigate, and it will point you in the right direction. And if you have any questions, there's phone numbers on there. They can call Salt Lake City directly. We have a lot of really knowledgeable folks there in the office, and anybody would be more than happy to talk with anybody in regards to any questions about our foundation or our mission in general.
How far is the mule deer habitat or mule deer found? I guess that's the right word to say it.
How far is it? I'm sorry.
How far east do mule deer live?
Mule deer primarily are in our western state. They're in New Mexico, though. There's a mass quantity of them in South Dakota. They're in North Dakota. Those are a couple states that we're beginning to develop. The places in South Dakota and North Dakota, there's just so many options for chapters, and that's something that our regional directors in those areas are very actively working on. New Mexico is building. Texas is doing well and thriving. Obviously all of our western states here that you're well aware of. So they're in places probably that people really don't know about. It may not be a heavily populated state, but they're there, and there's a need for the conservation of them and the help for chapters.
Let's talk about women and empowering other women to follow their dreams and the youth. What it needs to be done, and what specifically is the Mule Deer Foundation doing to get women and youth involved? Well,
from the Mule Deer Foundation standpoint, we are very proud we are very proud of our retention of youth into the shooting sports and conservation. We have a nationwide youth program. It's known as our Muley program, which stands for Mindful, Understanding, Legal, and Ethical Youth. We have Muley coordinators per state, and our goal is to have at least 1 to 3 Muley events a year. Those events are outside. They're an event where it's free for all the youth to come to. Different vendors will come in, everything from search and rescue to sheriff's department to Rocky Mountain Elk will join us, to Turkey Federation. And it's a day for the youth to get out and get away from the TV, get away from the video games, and come outdoors and learn about conservation, learn how to shoot a bow. There'll be a BB gun range there. So the Muley program is something that Mule Deer Foundation takes a lot of pride in, and I'm a huge supporter of it. I take a lot of pride in the fact that I have been trying to pilot a youth chapter committee. So take one local area. We actually had a youth committee, and it consisted of, we had a youth chairman, and it consisted of 8 to 10 other youth. And the whole point was not for them to be out there and trying to get donation after donation. but to be out there and to be doing projects, Bruce, and get their boots on the ground. A lot of them did have a goal to try to get out into the community and get one donation for the banquet, so that they feel like they're doing their part. Because just like I said before, our youth are our conservation future, and it is so important to Mule Deer Foundation that we uphold that, and we keep our muley program alive and kicking and eventful and active, and keep our youth there and involved.
Well said, and we're going to wrap up the show. And one more time, give some shout-outs to people that have helped you along the way, how people get in touch with PROAS or the Mule Deer Foundation, and any of the sponsors or special people that you've run across.
Absolutely.
Okay, Rachel, we're going to wrap this up right now, and take a couple minutes and just give some shout-outs to whomever you'd like, and you got the mic for a minute or so.
Sure. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks again for having me. Of course, a big shout out to PROAS, to Kirsty Pike and Catherine Grand. Love them to pieces. Love PROAS, everything they stand for, and I'm just absolutely elated to be a part of them and representing them, and the wonderful group of women. Also, he's going to kill me for doing it, but a big shout out to my mentor in conservation, Dan McKinley. He's my regional director for Washington, Idaho, and Alaska. He's taught me everything that I've known and everything that I've learned in conservation. So big shout out to him. And of course, everybody at the Mule Deer Foundation for believing in me and trusting and really letting me go and grow as I'm wanting to with them as far as I can. So you can check out Mule Deer Foundation at www.muledeer.org.
Rachel Voss, thank you so much for being an outstanding guest. I've had fun. We've laughed and we've got serious, and because conservation is serious, and if we don't do it, folks, it's not going to happen. And it's a heritage, it's a tradition of hunting that we want to pass on, but even greater than that, it's the outdoors, and as Rachel said, it's in the still silence of nature where one will find true bliss. And the mountaintops and the water edges are my happy spots, my heaven on earth. So well done, young lady, and I look forward to watching your career grow.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Make sure you listen to the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're going to have as a guest Mr. Kip Adams. Kip is a certified wildlife biologist and the Director of Education and Outreach for QDMA. Hey, a special friend, Paige Darden of My Topo says, before you head into the woods, visit mytopo.com to design a waterproof map centered on the area you plan to hunt. Overlay public boundaries such as wildlife management areas and private land owner parcel data and owners' names. My Topo prints and ships within 24 hours for quick delivery to your mailbox. Find out who owns all the land around your favorite hunting spots. It's a great service I used often, and I highly recommend it to you.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.